If AI is much smarter than a person, what do we do?
I have to say that when something is a danger to the public, then there needs to be some government agency, like regulators. The fact is, like, we've got regulators in the aircraft industry, car industry, drugs, food, and anything that's sort of a public risk. I mean, I think this has to fall into the category of a public risk.
We need government agencies to regulate it, not to go all conspiracy theorists or anything, but like, why do we let them regulate everything when they don't actually do good by the people anymore? Everything is corrupt. So do we want to also be like, yeah, they should run AI too?
I think he's suggesting regulation in the sense that in the next 10 years, 30 to 40% of the workplace is displaced. Now, we've had displacement before, right? When steam engines came along and people went from farms to factories, people were displaced from farms, they went into factories. It's happened numerous times throughout human nature. Technology has displaced a big group of workers. They move into a different field. A lot of people who are on the utopian side believe that, hey, once AI happens, people will shift into different jobs. I tend to agree with that. We're going to find things to do. But I think what he's suggesting is if that many people leave the workplace and then AI starts to get even smarter and there's no ceiling to it. So here's what's happening right now today as we speak. ChatGPT's out. Microsoft just invested $10 billion in it. Google's coming out with one. So are 2 Chinese companies. There's now a race to get to the finish line. Now, one of the things that's already happening is the way to create better AI is to gather more tech or to gather more data. The 2 biggest data centers in the world are China and the US. They're collecting all the data right now. So all of our apps, all those things that are collecting data are feeding AI. China and the US are racing, but so are companies. So I think what you're going to see happen in the next 10 years is Google, Facebook, Microsoft, probably several of the Chinese internet players. There's probably 7 to 10 companies that are about to get even bigger and more powerful. And if they can control general learning AI or even higher levels of AI, they're going to control everything. And I think what he's worried about is, number one, that.
Which they already kind of do. Like, think about Google. Everything syncs to Google.
Yeah, it's wild. Google just came out with that AI assistant too that sounds just like a human being.
How may I help you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
We can call for you, make a call, set an appointment. Yeah, so I think one of the biggest concerns with AI right now that I was reading was that everyone's really worried about displacement and what happens over the next 10 years, right? And you're still talking general AI knowledge. Most of the experts don't think singularity is going to happen till like 2045, which isn't that far off.
Yeah, but so going back, like, regulation, everything. Who regulates the internet? Not one person owns the actual internet, right? I think the other problem is almost everything we do, China, all these countries do, it involves like military industrial complex first, right? Because it's defense, yada, yada, yada. We weaponize stuff before we use it for good. It's just like a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me that they're not going to weaponize it first, or that they haven't already.
Yeah. No, they probably already have.
We have drones and stuff, and like, it's becoming more unmanned. Like, we use robots for a ton of stuff, and like we're gonna have like AI robots fighting.
I think what he's also suggesting too is that people should come together and put a ceiling on this thing for now, because there's no answers, right? So that's where I was going earlier, but you guys cut me off per usual. If everyone's displaced, and let's say they don't find jobs, because he's saying AI as it gets better and better and better, you can't compete with it. So if all these people aren't making money, because one of the biggest concerns right now is displacement, you lose jobs. The gap between haves and have-nots is about to get even bigger. So what do we do with all those people whose entire lives are based on what I do, which, by the way, is a relatively new invention. So like, your identity being tied up in what you do is relatively new. Does that make any sense? Like when people ask you what you do, you go, I do this for a living. Yeah. When you take that away from people, the psychological damage of AI is one of the biggest things they're worried about. And I think what he's saying is, why don't we come together and put some ceilings on this thing before it gets out of control, and then we have no control.